Failing to win the first male lead's affection near the end, I chose the second male lead, Sterling. Many people tried to sow discord by bringing up my past in front of him, but he just felt sorry for himself for coming into my life too late, which is why I thought I had and ended up loving the wrong person. He swore that he would never let me go through that again. But after the novelty wore off, he kept a mistress outside. Maeva has been married twice. Honestly, who would want her if she left me? With this as his excuse, Sterling acted with impunity. But what he didn't know was that if I succeeded in conquering him, I could leave him at any time. On the day of my new book signing event, someone added lemon juice to my water. I'm severely allergic to lemons, so I ended up in the hospital immediately. As soon as he got the news, Sterling rushed over. My editor looked grim and was just about to speak up for me when the actress, Vespera, who had been caught red-handed, beat her to it, her eyes welling up with tears. I just felt sorry for Maeva and wanted to help her replenish some vitamins. I didn't expect it to turn out like this. I looked up at her, pale-faced, finding her excuse absurd. The surveillance cameras had caught Vespera's sneaky actions. It was clearly intentional. My editor, Octavia, patted my shoulder, trying to comfort me with her gaze. Sterling was always protective, so with him here, Vespera wouldn't get off easy. Everyone knew that Sterling had once caused a huge uproar for my sake. When I failed in my conquest and divorced the first male lead, Sterling made a grand proposal to me right outside the Civil Affairs Bureau and married me despite the pressure from his family, even though I was a divorcee. Anyone who crossed me never had a good ending. But this time, Sterling acted out of character. He looked at Vespera and let out a casual laugh. If it was done with good intentions, there's no need to feel too guilty. Just come over and apologize to your sister, Maeva. The unexpected gentleness in his tone left Octavia in disbelief. She ruined Maeva's book signing event and nearly killed her. A simple apology is all it takes. Sterling glanced at her. No real harm was done. We can just hold another signing event. What more do you want? No one ever dared to argue with Sterling's words. But as soon as he said that, the expressions of everyone present changed. Many eyes turned towards me. Sterling also looked down at me, smiling gently. Besides, Maeva isn't the kind of person who holds grudges. I stood there in a daze as the actress happily walked over. Sister Maeva, I'm sorry for ruining your book signing event. She smiled sweetly, but there was a trace of smugness in her tone. I looked at her, feeling a sudden chill in my fingertips. For some reason, I suddenly remembered the rumors from some time ago. Many people were saying that Sterling had a mistress outside. He had spoiled her to the extreme. After causing a scene, the actress Vespera left unscathed. The room fell into dead silence. My editor's face was grim. Sterling seemed not to notice. After a few words of concern, he left, citing business matters. We've been preparing for this book signing event for 6 months, and now it's just over. As soon as Sterling left, the room erupted. Octavia looked at me, her eyes filled with unwillingness. I closed my eyes and said softly, "Call the police." If Sterling wouldn't handle it, I would do it myself. But before I could make the call, Sterling's people stopped me. A chill spread through my chest. So, Sterling had decided to suppress this matter. His phone remained unanswered. He didn't come home even by nightfall. Before bed, he suddenly sent me a location. "I'm drunk, Maeva, can you come pick me up? Let's talk about what happened during the day." I stared at the message for 2 seconds, thinking about the incident with the police, and reluctantly got up to go find him. When I reached the entrance of the club, just as I was about to push the door open, I suddenly heard a crisp female voice coming from the slightly ajar door. "I don't want this gift. I want the necklace that Maeva likes the most. Will you give it to me or not?" Her tone was spoiled yet adorable. I froze on the spot. It was Vespera's voice. Under the dim light, I saw a bunch of people inside, the same one Sterling usually hung out with. Vespera was nestled in Sterling's arms, even leaning in to kiss him. "I just like that one. If you don't give it to me, I'll make a scene." Sterling didn't dodge. He looked down at her. "Didn't you cause enough trouble today? Well, isn't there someone to clean up my mess?" Ooh, I can't even look, someone mocked. Sterling, you're so partial to the big star. What will you do if Maeva finds out? Sterling lit a cigarette, and through the swirling smoke, I seemed to see him smile. I do like Maeva. But it's been 6 years. Facing the same face every day gets boring. Sometimes, you need to change things up. Besides, even if she finds out, it doesn't matter. Sterling leaned back, the smile not reaching his eyes. Maeva has been married twice, and she's not young anymore. Honestly, who would want her if she left me? Vespera giggled. Indeed. Who would be interested in an old woman? So dirty. After speaking, she suddenly tilted her head towards the door and caught my gaze. Her eyes were full of laughter. I instantly understood. That message was sent from Sterling's phone by Vespera. She had deliberately lured me here to witness this scene. I clutched my wrist, feeling my fingers tremble uncontrollably. The nausea kept rising in waves. That night, Sterling didn't come home. Actually, if I had been a bit more observant lately, I should have noticed something was off. I just trusted Sterling too much. I didn't believe the rumors. I believed in my own judgment, believed that I wouldn't misjudge a person. But people change. In the middle of the night, Sterling's call came through. As soon as I answered, the sound of intimate kissing echoed in the silent night. Vespera's muffled voice came through the phone. Aren't I more fun than Maeva? You think, The rest of her sentence was cut off by a kiss, the sound of their entanglement hitting my eardrums like a drum. I hung up abruptly, ran to the bathroom, and vomited until I was dizzy. Outside, the rain poured down. I didn't sleep all night. I searched the entire villa and found the bracelet I had put away 6 years ago that could connect me to the system. I asked, if I regret it now, can I still leave? The system responded coldly. It said absolutely. I could leave this world with my rewards at any time. Leave Sterling. Sterling came back in the morning. When he saw me on the sofa, he looked a bit surprised. Why do you look so pale? Caught a cold? He instinctively leaned closer, placing his hand on my forehead. He played his part well. He didn't seem much different from 6 years ago. Gentle and considerate. Where were you last night? I asked. Sterling gently rubbed my head. There was something at the company. How about I make some porridge for you? I've always had a frail constitution and would catch colds frequently. Back then, no matter how busy Sterling was, he would always rush back to take care of me. He said I was more important than anything. As Sterling leaned closer, I noticed faint red marks on his neck. Signs of last night's passion. A wave of nausea surged up abruptly. All the emotions I had bottled up the night before came crashing down, almost drowning me. I had heard the rumors about the mistress. At the time, I confidently told Octavia, Sterling loves me too much to do something like that. But reality had just driven a knife into my heart. I looked at Sterling, feeling my vision blur bit by bit. So the rumors are true. Perhaps I said it too suddenly. Sterling visibly stiffened. I looked at him, and suddenly a tear splashed down onto the back of my hand. Is it fun, treating me like a fool? He looked at me, his smile frozen on his face. What nonsense are you talking about? I saw it all. Last night at the club, you and Vespera. And, the things you said. As the words fell, the atmosphere suddenly grew tense. The living room plunged into a suffocating silence. I quietly stared at Sterling. 6 years. Over 2,000 days and nights. I wasn't willing to let it go. Even if I had to leave this world, I still wanted an explanation from Sterling. But Sterling only looked shocked for a second before quickly recovering. He stopped smiling, his tone carrying a coldness I hadn't heard in 6 years. So, you saw everything. I thought that by revealing the truth, Sterling would be panicked, guilty, and would try to lie with some excuse. But I didn't expect him to admit it so nonchalantly. Maeva, why? He lowered his eyes, gently tidying my hair, his actions tender, but his tone held a hint of irritation. Why didn't you say anything last night? But now you bring it up today. Wouldn't it be better to keep pretending? We could still have the same relationship as before. I can give you everything you want, And you can continue to be Mrs. Vance, envied by everyone. Why disrupt this peace? My throat felt like it was blocked by something, choking me until my eyes turned red. So, we've been married for 6 years, and now you can't even give me an explanation. Sterling glanced at me. Sometimes a man's feelings can detach quickly. One moment he's professing his love with deep emotion, and the next, he's stabbing you in the back without a second thought. There's nothing to explain, Sterling said flatly. Maeva, you're older than me, and you're not young anymore. And you made a scene with Lucius that everyone knows about. Without me, do you really think you have a better option? Sterling's words pierced my heart like needles. When I first arrived in this world, I was already married to Lucius. That journey of trying to win his love, which started with marriage, lasted 3 years. To complete the task and return home, I did everything I could, even abandoning my dignity. But Lucius always despised me, and in the end, I failed. What I didn't realize was that Sterling had always been bothered by this. Back then, he would hold me in his arms, soothing me over and over again, saying, "It's okay, Maeva, it's all in the past." His words were so sincere. In my original world, I was an orphan with no one to care for me. I had always been alone. Now, someone was willing to love me unconditionally, and it would be a lie to say I wasn't moved. I believed him. When the system switched my target to Sterling, I thought it was fate. The system told me that once a target was conquered, the one being conquered would also receive a notification. When I chose to stay with Sterling, he teared up, softly promising that he would never let me go through anything like that again. But a man's promises only hold weight in the moment they are spoken. Sterling broke his promise. Now, Sterling sat casually on the sofa and spoke. Now that you can't return to your previous world, here, you only have me. Pretending not to know is the most dignified way to handle this, isn't it? My eyes stung with tears. I looked up at Sterling and laughed, tears streaming down my face. You're so sure I won't leave you? Yes. Sterling didn't panic or rush to wipe away my tears as he used to. He remained calm, sitting there with a confident tone. You can't leave me. My heart froze completely at those words. In fact, I had never told Sterling. Once the task was over, I could leave anytime. I looked at Sterling. Suddenly, I wanted to know. If Sterling knew this, how would he react? Sterling suddenly became very busy. He was busy taking Vespera on Ferris wheel rides. Busy celebrating her birthday. He even promised to buy her the necklace I loved. Vespera loved to send me messages about these things, with every word filled with boastfulness. Maeva, I'm sorry, but you might not get the necklace you wanted at tomorrow's auction. Sterling insisted on giving it to me. Tilda Octavia was furious, cursing, Sterling must be crazy. How many of your things has Vespera taken from you lately? And now she wants to take this too. Ever since Octavia found out about Sterling and Vespera, she's been dying to curse Sterling out as a bastard every day. Yeah, I murmured as I stared at the screen. Sterling really is a bastard. Sterling used to treat me the same way he now treats Vespera. Back then, I felt fortunate for his favoritism for many years. I once told Sterling, if you ever stop treating me well, I'll disappear from your world forever. Back then, I never imagined that day would come so soon. I wiped away my tears and let out a light laugh. If she wants it that badly, let her have it. I don't want it anymore. It was okay. Once the book signing event was over, I could completely leave this world. I've been busy with this for a long time, and I didn't want it to end without a proper conclusion. Thankfully, this book signing event was a great success, which meant I'd be able to leave soon. On the final day, I said a proper goodbye to Octavia. I told her that I would probably be leaving here, and possibly never coming back. I stood on the overpass, looking up. The sunset was beautiful. I didn't know how long I had been staring. Not until the cold night breeze crept into my thin sweater, and the sunset had completely faded, did I move my stiff fingers and look away. I turned around and slowly began to walk back. Suddenly, a tall figure blocked my path. It was Lucius, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. He still had the same indifferent expression as before. Instinctively, I stepped to the left to avoid him and kept walking forward. But as we brushed past each other, I heard him say, "Is this the man you chose?" I froze for a second, didn't respond, and continued walking, but he grabbed my wrist. "Maeva, I don't like you. But I am still your ex-husband. If you need anything, you can come to me." I shook off his hand, polite yet distant. "No need, thank you." When I got home, the living room was still shrouded in darkness. Sterling hadn't been back for days. He was right. He didn't care whether I knew or not. He was certain that I had nowhere else to go if I left him. It was probably my last night. I indulged in a lot of alcohol, and in my drunken stupor, Sterling, who hadn't contacted me in a long time, unexpectedly called. "Maeva, you met with Lucius behind my back." I don't know if it was because I was too drunk, but I could hear a clear note of jealousy in his questioning tone. I felt a bit dazed as if he still loved me, but Vespera's face immediately floated into my mind, reminding me that this relationship could never go back to what it was. I closed my eyes and asked him somewhat mockingly, "You can keep a mistress outside, but I can't meet my ex-husband." Sterling fell silent on the other end of the line. After a long pause, he hung up. Vespera sent a picture shortly after. Lately, Vespera had been sending me photos of her and Sterling together. All sorts of them. All of them featuring Sterling. His downcast eyes, serious and handsome. Vespera laughed as she texted, "Borrowing your husband for a bit. Hee hee." With Sterling, Vespera seemed to have found a solid backer. I didn't reply, and instead took screenshots of all the conversations we'd had recently. Then I posted them on my social media. Since she wanted to disgust me, no one should have it easy. After posting, I fell asleep on the sofa for a long time. Even though I told myself I didn't care, I still dreamt of the past. On my birthday, fireworks lit up the entire city. The candle flames flickered. Sterling's soft blessings echoed in my ears. He sincerely said that his Maeva should always be happy. I had never felt such passionate love before, and I cried like a baby. Sterling looked at me and laughed, calling me a crybaby. But the next second, he reached out to wipe away my tears and held me in his arms. He sang me a birthday song, loudly and out of tune. The memories from those days flashed through my mind like a montage. When it ended, I woke up abruptly to find my face wet with tears. The emotions in the dream didn't lie. I was indeed sad. The living room was still dark, shrouded in gloom. In the silence, I sat up, suddenly realizing that someone was sitting beside the sofa. Hearing the movement, he looked up and met my gaze. "Why are you crying?" His tone was concerned, just like Sterling in the dream. I froze on the spot. Maybe it was the alcohol. I couldn't tell if this was a dream or reality. I looked up at him, feeling all the grievances from the past few days rushing up uncontrollably. I cried and asked him why he had to bully me with Vespera. Why did he treat me like a fool? Sterling's warm fingertips brushed the corner of my eye, and he asked me, "Are you very sad?" My heart skipped a beat. Before I could reply, Sterling suddenly let out a cold laugh and gripped my chin tightly. After posting all that on social media, causing such a huge impact on the company and ruining the deal Vespera just secured, you should be happy. So why are you crying? His words yanked me back to reality. My eyelashes fluttered. I came to my senses. So this was it. Sterling had come to confront me on behalf of Vespera. The social media post hadn't been up for long before it caused a stir and quickly trended. Many people started digging into the situation. Vespera was terrified. She was scared that her reputation in the industry would be damaged, so she cried to Sterling for help. Sterling stared at me, his expression cold. "Delete the post." I stared back at Sterling, laughing until my nose tingled and tears began to fall uncontrollably. "So, you knew about the photos Vespera sent me. You knew she was doing this to disgust me, and you knew all along. Sterling, what do you take me for?" "I just found out," he said impatiently, frowning. "I'm only playing around with her. Don't be unreasonable." I looked at him in silence. Sterling seemed to want to say more, but his phone buzzed. It was Vespera's voice. Her coquettish complaint echoed in the room. "Sterling, I really miss you. Hurry up and take care of that post and come be with me, okay? Whoa. Sterling's frown instinctively relaxed. He typed something on his phone and then looked up at me again, the displeasure reappearing in his eyes. But he softened his tone. Maeva, there's no need to take it this far. Vespera won't threaten your position as Mrs. Vance. Even though I was the one who had been married to him for 6 years, he called another woman by her nickname so affectionately. At that moment, my love for him completely evaporated. I slowly stood up and looked at him. What if I say I won't delete it? You don't have the right to refuse, Sterling said coldly. He looked down at me, repeating, delete it. Don't make me say it a third time. With that, he turned to leave and go to Vespera, but then he paused and looked back at me. And don't meet with Lucius again. Whether I see him or not is my choice. Sterling's voice turned icy. Don't push me into making things ugly. Stick to your role as Mrs. Vance. The Sterling standing before me was so hypocritical that I couldn't see any trace of the man he used to be. All I felt was a wave of nausea. Suddenly, I didn't want to stay here for another moment. I asked Sterling, do you remember I told you that if you ever crossed me, I would disappear from your world forever? Sterling scoffed indifferently. What? You're going to return to your world and be an orphan? I pressed my pale lips together and forced a smile. Sterling, I don't want to play the loving couple with you anymore. I'm going back to my original world. Sterling was completely exasperated. Are you still playing this game? When will it end? Maeva, do you think I don't know? You can't go back, and now you only have me. What good will it do you to make me angry? Or are you trying to use this as a... Before Sterling could finish, the bracelet on my wrist suddenly lit up with a red glow, casting a light across his face. The system had been activated by me. Sterling's words caught in his throat as he looked at me, bewildered for a second. Sterling's face turned deathly pale. I looked at him, smiling as I spoke. System, take me out of this world. As soon as I finished speaking, the world spun violently around me. My vision began to blur. I felt dizzy and couldn't stand upright, suddenly collapsing straight to the ground. Just moments before, Sterling had been irritated, but now he reached out hastily to catch me. However, halfway through, he pulled his arm back. He stuffed one hand in his pocket, letting me fall to the ground. Maeva, this trick might fool a child, but it won't work on me. I'll give you 3 seconds to get up. 3, 2. His countdown abruptly stopped, his face turning pale as he watched blood spill from my mouth. In that moment, he finally believed it. Leaving this world wasn't just some trick I was playing on him. Maeva! He finally panicked, rushing over to grab my hand, stumbling over his words. What do you mean, leave? Weren't you just saying that to get me back? His eyes, which had been filled with irritation and frustration moments ago, were now full of fear. Just a moment ago, he had been angry with me over Vespera, but now he looked as if he was terrified of losing me. I found it amusing and couldn't help but laugh. I tried to pry his fingers off, but I had no strength left. I could only look at him and smile as the blood stained the white shirt on my chest. I said, Sterling, your acting is really awful. Vespera likes something these days and you rushed to take it from me to give it to her. You knew how long I had been preparing for the book signing, but you let her ruin it as a joke. You also knew how long I had been waiting for that necklace, but you were sure I couldn't leave you, so you humiliated me to make her happy. Everyone around you knew about Vespera, but I was kept in the dark. Did she laugh at me like a fool when she was with you? Stop it. Sterling interrupted me, his voice rough with anger, his eyes red. Stop it. I took a deep breath. She deliberately disgusted me, and you rushed over in the middle of the night to scold me when I posted on social media. Sterling gritted his teeth as he looked at me. Yes, I was out of my mind during this time and I went too far, but I never thought you would leave. I didn't know about the book signing. I didn't give that necklace to Vespera. She was just pretending. Even if the social media thing hadn't happened, I was planning to come and give you a surprise today. He fumbled out a box from somewhere and opened it. There it was, the necklace I had wanted for so long. It was beautiful. Sterling's voice grew hoarse. I was just playing around with her as something new, but I never forgot that it was you who had been with me for 6 years. Yes, you didn't forget, but you took my presence for granted and used it as a way to mistreat me. I used all my strength to grab the necklace and tried to throw it far away. But I don't want it anymore, Sterling. I don't want the necklace, and I don't want you. I won't allow it. Sterling gritted his teeth as he lifted me up. It might have been my imagination, but I felt his fingers trembling. Maeva, I won't let you leave. Sterling rushed me to the hospital. He called in the best specialists overnight. I lay on the hospital bed, watching him frantically running up and down. But no one could do anything. They could only watch as the signs of my life inexplicably faded away. I would occasionally cough up blood, but it didn't hurt. I just felt dizzy and weak. I asked the system why not just leave directly. The system said I had stayed in this world too long. To completely erase my presence, the process would be slower. Erase completely. So, will everyone forget me? No, but everything related to the host will disappear along with you, including your body in this world. I closed my eyes and nodded slightly. That would be for the best. The sky was gloomy. It seemed like a heavy rain was coming. The first time I met Sterling, it also rained heavily. Back then, I was chasing after Lucius, but Lucius always ignored me. One day, he left me in the pouring rain again and Sterling, unable to stand it, yanked me under his umbrella with a stern face. Getting soaked in the rain will make you sick. There are other men out there besides him. Why do you keep humiliating yourself by sticking to him? Anyway, you two have no feelings for each other, so you might as well get a divorce. After that, Sterling often showed up around me, half jokingly, half seriously urging me to get a divorce. Leave him, and you can choose someone better, like me. Haven't you thought about it? Later on, he confronted Lucius face to face. Lucius threw out a do as you please before walking away without looking back. At that moment, I knew I was unlikely to succeed. The day I divorced Lucius, after failing in my mission, I was devastated, even ready to be erased. But Sterling made a grand gesture, proposing to me right outside the Civil Affairs Bureau. There was no trace of his usual playful demeanor in his eyes. He said he was serious. I stood there, stunned. After the original target disappeared, Sterling's name replaced it. The system said that because of Sterling's influence, the target of the mission had changed. This self-conquest was completed perfectly. On our wedding day, Sterling gently held me in his arms. I could feel an unprecedented tension in him. I pushed him away, my voice hoarse. But I knew very well what the rumors were saying about my past. I know. Sterling's voice cracked with pain. I don't care what others say, and I don't care about the past. None of that matters to me. It's my fault for coming into your life too late, which is why you had to go through all those difficult things. Back then, it seemed like Sterling truly loved me enough to move the system. I wanted to sleep, really sleep. Ideally, I'd wake up and find that I had returned home. But Sterling was gripping my wrist like a madman. He wouldn't let me sleep. Maeva, what gives you the right to decide to leave on your own? It was I who saved you from the system. Without my permission, you're not allowed to leave. He grabbed the bracelet on my wrist, repeatedly giving the command to cancel the departure. But the system wouldn't listen to him. He couldn't keep me here. Octavia was the first to get the news. When she arrived at the hospital, she stood at the door looking at me, her eyes red with tears. Even if Sterling is a bastard and did wrong, why did you choose this way? You said you were leaving here. I thought you meant just leaving, but I never imagined you didn't want to live anymore. I tried to explain repeatedly that it wasn't that I didn't want to live, but that I was returning to my original world. Octavia stayed by my side, refusing to leave. This card, it was the one you secretly slipped to me the day you said goodbye, wasn't it? You planned on leaving long ago, didn't you? Maeva, you're just as much of a jerk. Suddenly, I found myself tearing up. I had thought about staying in this world forever. I'm an orphan. Even if I returned to my original world, I'd still be alone. But here, At least there was someone like Octavia who genuinely cared about me. If I divorced Sterling, I could still be myself. But when I had brought the divorce papers to Sterling previously, he had stared at me and laughed coldly. Are you really sure about this? Without me, who else in this city would want you? I was so angry that I started to shake. I raised my hand and slapped Sterling. Sterling, I am a person, not a possession. I can live just fine without anyone. I hit him so hard that my fingers tingled. Sterling grabbed my wrist, suddenly furious, forcing me to look at him. Maeva, do you really want to leave me that badly? Yes, even half a second with you makes me feel sick. Sterling stared at me, then laughed. Fine, if you don't care, if it means nothing to you. What about Octavia? Octavia didn't get this far easily. If you leave, can she keep the job she's worked so hard for all these years? You should know, it's not difficult for me to make that happen. I closed my eyes, suddenly at a loss for words. Octavia shouldn't be innocently dragged down by my issues. Sterling handed the divorce papers back to me. He softly said, I told you, you can't leave me. I tore up the divorce papers right in front of Sterling. I wasn't going to divorce him, and I didn't want to stay in this world anymore. I could feel my breathing becoming weaker. Sterling stumbled into the room. All the doctors shook their heads at him. He looked at me, and there was no trace of the disgust that had been there these past few weeks. Maeva, what do I do? What should I do? He clutched my hand, his voice choking. Maeva, don't do this to me. He was heartbroken, as if he really loved me. I sniffed and smiled at Octavia. Look at him. Doesn't he look convincing when he acts? Convincing enough that I believed it for so many years. But I knew. This was just an emotional reaction. He never thought I could leave. Octavia swung her bag at him, hitting and cursing. Get out. Don't dirty Maeva's hands. When you were with Vespera, did you ever consider Maeva's feelings? Now that Vespera's scandal is exposed, you should be by her side. What are you doing here? Pretending to be heartbroken. Octavia hated Sterling to the core. Sterling ignored her. He bowed his head, and his tears fell onto my wrist. Do you really have to be so cruel? Sterling gritted his teeth and asked me, Maeva, can you really bear this? I wanted to say something more, but suddenly, I lost all my strength. I think I'm really going to say goodbye to this world. I left all my savings to Octavia. Without me, Sterling probably wouldn't bother her anymore. However, there was one last thing I didn't tell Sterling. I knew a man's guilt only lasts for a while. Over time, Sterling would go on living his carefree life. So I used half of my reward. I changed his and Vespera's ending. I want them to suffer every hardship but live a long life. The hospital was noisy, but in Sterling's world, it suddenly felt like all sound had disappeared. He clung tightly to Maeva's hand, but he couldn't hold on. Maeva had completely detached from this world. Sterling's face turned deathly pale. Octavia broke down in tears, throwing anything she could get her hands on at him. Sterling stood there in silence for a long time, shaking his head in denial. Sterling brought Maeva back home. He kept muttering, "It can't be. There must be a way." He wanted to check the bracelet on Maeva's wrist, but suddenly he noticed that the bracelet was beginning to turn transparent. Sterling froze. He realized that it wasn't just the bracelet. Maeva herself was starting to become transparent, gradually disappearing. Disappear completely. Sterling's hand hung in the air. He desperately tried to remember, but he couldn't recall how he felt back then. He only remembered making a promise. He told Maeva that day would never come. But gradually, his love seemed to fade over time. He began to feel that Maeva wasn't as attractive as he once thought. He started to find her uninteresting. That's when people began to sow discord, bringing up Maeva's past with Lucius. In the past, whenever anyone tried to say something like that, Sterling would turn on them without hesitation. Maeva is my wife, and anyone who dares to bring up her past will have to deal with me. But now, thinking back, he suddenly couldn't say those words. He felt bitter about how Maeva had once clung to Lucius. That's when Vespera appeared. He knew exactly what Vespera was after, but he didn't push her away. He thought Vespera was right. Maeva was no longer the young girl she once was. Apart from him, what better choice did she have? The more Sterling thought back, the more he realized how absurd he had been. He suddenly slapped himself hard. When he came to his senses, Maeva was almost completely gone. No. Don't leave. I didn't give you permission. Sterling frantically tried to hold Maeva in his arms. But the system's erasure had already begun. He could only watch helplessly as the person in his arms disappeared before his eyes. Bit by bit. Until she was completely gone. Sterling hadn't left the house in days. After Maeva completely disappeared from this world, everything related to her began to vanish from Sterling's sight as well. The room suddenly felt empty, so quiet that even the sound of breathing could be heard clearly. He wanted to cast aside these memories, but in the dead of night, they clung to him like inescapable ghosts. They invaded his dreams over and over again, constantly reminding him that he had brought this upon himself. Vespera called again. Sterling. Sterling, help me. I've worked so hard. I don't want it all ruined by one social media post. Lately, the flood of online comments had made her too scared even to check her phone. Vespera was both aggrieved and furious. She blamed Maeva for exposing everything. She cried bitterly, feeling as though the whole world was against her. Sterling held the phone, finding Vespera's voice unbearably annoying. It grated on his nerves. He nodded and replied, "All right, I'll help you." Vespera was overjoyed, but she didn't expect that what awaited her was neither clarification nor salvation. She stared in shock at Sterling's account, where photo after incriminating photo was posted, her heart sinking into ice. Sterling, for reasons she couldn't understand, suddenly exposed everything. "Sterling, are you crazy? You said you'd help me." But Sterling's phone went dead. Sterling had vanished. Octavia's work was going smoothly. As the end of the year approached, she found herself increasingly busy. When she finally looked up, Octavia noticed that it had started snowing. She felt a bit dazed. It seemed surreal that Maeva had been gone for so long. Vespera was banned from the entire internet due to her poor behavior. Sterling also fell gravely ill. Octavia felt a pang of regret. Why didn't Sterling just die? But Sterling didn't die. He had a long life ahead of him. The next time Octavia saw Sterling, she had just gotten off work. Seeing him from a distance, Octavia felt her mood sour instantly. He appeared to be slowly emerging from the shadow of Maeva's departure. Just as Octavia finished that thought, a loud screech of brakes rang out. This was followed by a horrified scream. Octavia looked up. She saw Sterling, who had seemed in good spirits just moments before, being hit and thrown by a suddenly swerving car driven by a drunk driver. She saw Sterling lying on the ground, pale and in too much pain to speak. Once she processed what had happened, Octavia's mood lifted completely. Sterling didn't die, but his leg was broken. When Octavia visited the hospital to offer some sarcastic remarks, she also ran into an old acquaintance, Vespera. Apparently, Vespera had fallen into a sore after stepping on an uneven patch of ground. Octavia didn't know what to say for a moment. It seemed like all the good things had happened at once. Every time the two of them started to get their lives back on track, another unexpected accident would occur. Yet somehow, both of them had incredible resilience. They always managed to survive, only to encounter even more heart-wrenching accidents. Octavia suddenly felt like life had given her something to look forward to. Another spring arrived. Octavia found herself missing Maeva. She looked up at the sky, vaguely recalling the dream she had last night. In the dream, she saw that Maeva was doing well in her own world. The harsh winter had passed. Spring is in full bloom.